Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Organise 2020, the TUC's Festival of Discussion, Debate and Ideas on Building our Trade Union Movement. In case you've somehow got lost in the Zoomiverse and you're wondering where you are, you're at the session called The Future of Union Reps Education. My name is Carl Roper, and I work for the TUC as the National Education and Organising Manager, and I'm going to be your host for this session. Before I introduce our great panel of speakers, can I just take you through how we're going to run the session? Firstly, please be aware that the session will be recorded and might be posted on YouTube in the next week or so. Secondly, you'll see in the chat that we're just about to post the TUC's Code of Conduct for Organise 2020. Please take note of this and adhere to all the guidelines on behaviour and language that we'd all expect of each other if we were all together in person. Anyone not adhering to the Code of Conduct will be removed from the session. We want the session to be as interactive as possible, and therefore we want you to ask questions. To do this, can we ask you to use the Q&A function on Zoom? Please don't post questions in the chat because we will be only looking at the Q&A section. If you've got a question for a particular panel member, please mention them. We'll obviously do our best to get to as many questions as we can. We think we've left plenty of room for questions and discussion, but my apologies in advance if we don't get to your question. And finally, we did ask all people who were registering for Organise 2020 sessions to let us know in advance if they had any accessibility requirements. We didn't get any requests for assistance or adjustments. Obviously, we're unable to make adjustments during the session itself, but if you do have a requirement and you feel you're not able to participate in the session, please do get in touch and we can find a way to make sure that you get to see what happened. So before a few introductory remarks from me on how kind of the TUC sees issues around union reps education, just want to introduce our speakers. First of all, from Unison, we have Sarah Hayes, National Education Officer with Unison. Welcome, Sarah. Secondly, we have Andy Gilchrist, RMT, National Education Officer. Welcome to you, Andy. Then from outside the trade union movement, but very much a partner of the trade union movement, we have Tracey Patmore, who's a Product Development Manager with NOCN. Welcome to you, Tracey. And finally, we have my colleague, who many of you will already know, Kalsi. Anna works in our online team as an eLearning support officer. We've asked each panelist to speak for around 6 minutes. Once they've all spoken, we'll get to your questions. Please don't wait until everyone has spoken before you post a question. Otherwise, we'll have a horrible cyber deathly silence, and I might have to fill the gap, and you don't want that. So just a kind of few introductory remarks for me to kind of set the scene. We're now approaching the 4-month anniversary of the country going into lockdown. And I think it's fair to say that for all of us working in trade union education, it's been a pretty hectic and, dare I say, a pretty exciting time. For the TUC, our strategy over this period in meeting the demands of this completely new situation involved mobilising all of our existing resources and creating new ones to continue to provide vital support and training for union reps during the pandemic. As we went into lockdown, all 19 of our TUC education centres were faced with the prospect of not being able to deliver any training for reps. And right at the start, we committed to ensuring they could offer a summer term course programme using the existing online materials for our 3 core courses, Union Reps 1, Health and Safety 1, and Union Learning Reps 1. By the end of April, thanks to the efforts of our brilliant online team, our education officers and our course coordinators, 13 of our 19 colleges had advertised the course programme, and by the end of May, 28 courses had started with over 350 reps registered. The use of webinars has been well established over the last few years, and we knew early on that these would be vital to delivering information to reps as the pandemic developed. Between the start of lockdown in the middle of June, TUC Education had delivered 14 webinars related to the pandemic, with over 8,000 reps taking part. And in addition to webinars, we produced 4 micro-learning sites aimed at providing support to reps on specific issues related to the pandemic. And since the start of the pandemic, those 4 micro-learning sites have been accessed by over 20,000 reps. We also supported affiliates in delivering their own training and other support to reps during the pandemic. We did e-learning with UCU, PCS, and supported an extensive escalation in online provision by Unison. And we also work with unions and the ex-TUC in allowing them to deliver their own webinars. I think this work we've done over this period with unions and our partner colleges in many ways touched on a lot of the issues and challenges that face the movement as we continue to attend to this most important job of making sure that our movement's most valuable asset, our army of workplace reps, of the knowledge and the skills they need to represent members individually and collectively, and to build and maintain union power in the workplace. These issues will be familiar to many of the people on this seminar. The debates between online and face-to-face training, how we fund training, the relationship between the TUC and our TUC education centres, the relationship between the TUC and affiliates, and the subjects and issues that reps need training on. I've been in the post as TUC Education Manager for 10 months, and during this time I've joined our brilliant team to continue to address some of these challenges and at least try to focus on what the real issues are at the heart of these. We've said that the debate that has existed between online and face-to-face is a false debate. Rather than a choice between the two, they should support and complement each other. Online learning is a great way for reps to start to get in the skills and knowledge they need to be effective on behalf of their members. But that should always, as far as possible, include training in the classroom. And classroom training certainly can benefit and be enhanced by the use of online resources. Since the start of this year, to match the investment in online training, Tony Saunders, our Education Officer for the Northwest and the Northern TUC regions, has overseen a complete rewrite of our course materials that can be used in the classroom. And later this summer, we'll be launching those updates of our 3 core courses. Crucially, all of these will be mapped across to online learning, so that what has at times been rhetoric around blended learning can become a reality. We're working hard as well to improve the relationship between the TUC and our partner colleges. We want TUC education centres, that's the proper name by the way, not TU study centres or various derivatives of that, to feel closer to the TUC. And we want them to play an increased role in delivering the priorities of the trade union movement as set out by unions via Congress. It's entirely right that they have this strategic role. After all, if it wasn't for the TUC and unions, they wouldn't exist at all. And to do this, we're working with unions, and in particular the UCU, to develop a new partnership agreement between ourselves and our partner colleges. We're working hard to build on the already good relationships between TUC Education and our affiliates. Quite simply, if TUC Education is not meeting the needs of unions in respect of delivering what their reps need, then we're not doing our job. Our commitment to that task is total. But in return for that, we ask for an honest conversation with unions about how and where training is delivered. While it's true to say that we've had some ups and downs over the years in respect of online learning, we're working with a decent number of affiliates on supporting their own online training programs, including Unison and RMT, who you'll hear from shortly. We're also working with unions on where training is delivered from. We completely understand that unions will have preferences for certain colleges and tutors delivering training, and we will always do our best to meet the needs of affiliates in this respect. But We also have a duty at the TUC to make sure that work is spread fairly across our network of TUC education centres. The reality is that when national or even regional programmes are placed with a small number of centres, that places massive pressure on the other centres as they look to fill courses and satisfy the demands of college and finance departments. But I'm confident a balance can be achieved moving forward. We're not looking to review existing arrangements because, after all, there's plenty of work to go around. And finally, the one issue that remains unresolved is one of the most important, and that's funding. The TUC programme of training for union reps is delivered UK-wide, and the same qualifications are accessed and delivered to reps in London, Birmingham, Liverpool, Glasgow, Cardiff and elsewhere. In recognition to the wider benefits to the economy of the work of reps, the government provides 50% co-funding contribution for TUC education training courses, and this is managed nationally and administered by Education and Skills Funding Agency. However, in August last year, Miro Combined Authorities and the Greater London Authority took on responsibility for adult education for their areas, and this presented a series of challenges to the TUC as we sought to continue to fund our trade union education programmes. Recruitment to college-based programmes isn't geographically based. Union reps are recruited through union networks and by workplace. And as a result, from our own internal inquiries, around 50 to 60% of reps attending a college-based course are from outside what would be regarded as the traditional geographic catchment of those colleges, potentially excluding them from area-based funding programmes in the future. The TUC continues to lobby governments and provide equal access for all reps to our national programmes in England within the national funding stream alongside devolved adult education budgets. In the meantime, we're continuing to work with colleges and MCAs to produce local solutions. But in the medium to long term, this is unsatisfactory. And given the proven value of the work carried out by union reps, we expect support in resolving this issue. So whilst I appreciate that doesn't cover all of the issues that even I highlighted at the beginning, and I accept that they're not the totality, I hope it set the scene for our discussion. And now it's time to hear from our speakers. As I said earlier on, we'll firstly hear from Sarah and then Andy. Then Tracey will talk to us about NOCN accreditation, and Anna's going to talk us through the TUC's digital badges. And then after that, it'll be your turn. So our first speaker is Sarah from Unison. Over to you, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome everyone. As Carl said, I'm a national education organiser for Unison, and as most of you know, Unison having 1.3 million members across all public services, across health, across education, across our police staff force, across local government, and importantly and more through kind of social care, transport, and all those utilities that used to be public services and have continually been privatised. And increasingly across our 12 regions and our devolved nations, more and more of our employers are from that private and contracted workforce. So we have a challenge, and our challenge is to how do we kind of train all our reps across the 12 regions, the devolved nations, over 1,000 branches, and as I say, even in the private and contracted, we have over tens of thousands of employers to deal with. So our approach to trade union rep education has to be flexible, and it has to reach everyone, but also maintain that quality for our stewards, for our health and safety officers, and for our union learning reps. And the approach that we take is from national, we write our courses, and then we do give a relative amount of autonomy to our regions and our devolved nations. And the courses that we run are delivered through the TUC education centres, and we do have a fantastic relationship with all the TUC education centres. But we also use our regional organising staff as well in order to try and reach all our reps, whether that be kind of flexibly through having small cohorts of sessions that can be of a different time. And we're looking at modularising our courses more and more. And so a session that may potentially have been a 5-day course, looking at it and running it over short sessions over many weeks, evenings, weekend sessions, and doing that. And so using the flexibility of our organising staff to be able to reach to those reps and have that relationship with the reps to find out what access requirements they have and how we can reach them is absolutely key. Via kind of employer, via sector and via branch. And also some of our regions have a fantastic structure of lay tutors, which predominantly have actually been trained from ourselves and from the TUC education centres, and so we can ensure that quality assurance is there in terms of the teaching as well. And so having this kind of three-pronged approach for Unison is absolutely vital to ensure that we reach and can reach and offer a service for everybody. How we've kind of telling you a bit of a story now in terms of how we've kind of reach out to everyone. We have had many calls on for e-learning over many years, as I'm sure many unions have had. And so in order to try and make sure that we offer some training initially to everybody, we have created a short e-note that we have, and it's a very short welcome introduction e-note and giving people some activities that they can potentially do to get on before they actually access our training. And then alongside that, we have a trained and active approach, which is basically our approach to mentoring. And so as soon as a rep is elected and registered, we assign them a mentor from the branch or from our regional organising staff to support them and try and get them onto the training course that's the most suitable and flexible for them. Now, we will always say that face-to-face learning is our preference, and it can only be our preference as well. However, thanks to the TUC, for many years we have had a Unison specific online course, and thank you to you, Anna, for maintaining that and ensuring that. It has always been previously a bit of a secret because we have always encouraged people to go on face-to-face courses, and if it had been a difficulty of a discussion with from reps having time off and facility time off with reps and employers, we'd have that conversation first, and then as a last resort we would use the online training course. But clearly things have kind of escalated, and in this current situation we have extended our online training provision with the TUC. So we don't just offer the TUC course, we've got the Unison specific health and safety stewards, union learning reps and new stewards courses that are supported, and we have seen an increase in uptake and I think we're training over 100 kind of reps at each given cohort for the TUC and Unison course. So thank you, Anna, for that. But clearly one size doesn't fit all, and so our approach, as many of you already said in the chat, is about blended, and is about how we can actually make sure that we reach everybody, maintain the best quality of training, and also ensure that we actually we can maintain that quality there. And so the blended approach is the way forward, and the word blended has been bandied around for so many times, and we've tried to say that blended doesn't necessarily mean going away and reading something online. It could be go away and have a bit of flip learning and actually go and speak to your branch, speak to the employers, gather information and then come back. It's the use of digital classrooms as well. So many of our courses now, and this morning I've run our employment rights recertification course on a platform similar to this, and we're running many cohorts of short short modules over 4 weeks with the platforms like this. We also have a discussion forum for activists on our Unison site called the Organising Space, and that is a fantastic platform that we use to ensure that people can share ideas, cut and paste kind of templates, and we use that on the course too. And we also have our e-learning site as well, with discussion forums and short e-notes that we have seen an increase over this current time of members and of reps accessing. But what I would say is the importance of trying to reach everyone and finding a course that's the right fit, whether it's length of course, whether it's the timing of course, whether it's the duration of course. We try to have that flexible approach where we can have that discussion with all the reps and find the best course for them. Moving on to kind of accreditation and how we're looking at accreditation. Well, this links to kind of a quality assurance, and we are looking at different ways of kind of registering courses online, whether it's a face-to-face course or whether it's a digital course, and looking at how we start digitally badging courses, and not just for the whole of the course, but looking at actually the skills that are involved, those transferable skills that are involved in the courses, and starting to badge those too. So if I in order to kind of like sum up on this, the key thing for us is flexibility, maintaining that quality, and having a wholehearted approach, working with our TUC Education Centre partners, working with our organising colleagues to ensure that they're trained up and can deliver trade union rep courses too, and working with our lay tutor structure, and ensuring that through this approach and through this kind of flexibility, and we can offer that choice and ensure that we can provide the quality of the trade union reps courses kind of moving forward. So I hope that kind of brings us to kind of a story that we've gone through, and it really is kind of that blended approach for us that's absolutely key. And I want to end saying kind of thank you to the TUC for really supporting and being able to suddenly maximise the Unison TU courses that you're putting on for us and supporting with us, because we have had so much interest, and the rate of actually getting people through those courses has been a complete success. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Sarah. That was great. Thanks very much. We'll move quickly on to Andy Gilchrist from RMT. Thanks, Andy. Andy, you're on mute.
You're not now. I've just switched it off.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying, Carl, thank you very much for the invitation. And I'm happy to sort of make a few remarks about trade union education, which is an absolute fundamental activity within the trade union movement, and always has been. And it's slightly cliched that it's probably never been as important as it is now. I mean, in the RMT, which we're just slightly short of about 85,000 members, we put approximately 1,240 students or members, reps and activists through our programme, largely at our National Education Centre, and until recently entirely classroom based. And that was an accepted view of the union going back some time. Now, a lot of people at the moment seem to find it fairly straightforward to blame coronavirus, COVID, and so on for everything. What I think it has done, it's ripped up the landscape of the world of work, and it's exposed, very easy to see, the great difficulties that people face at work around vulnerability, equality, terms and conditions, and so on and so forth. And the people that are going to have to face that challenge, which is on a scale, I believe at the moment, which is incomprehensible 3 or 4 months ago, are going to be properly trained and enthusiastic and committed workplace representatives in whatever union they are. And that throws up a challenge for us, because what we were training our reps for in the RMT, and maybe sister and brother unions would perhaps agree with this, is we were training them for a particular environment in the workplace that arguably at the moment simply doesn't exist. or it's morphed into something quite different, that we have to change what we're providing in terms of support, education and guidance for reps. I mean, of course, we've got to promote this. I mean, you know, one of the questions around the session is about, you know, how do we sort of promote it? We've got to do better at that, or do at least as good as we are. But, and I would respectfully say this to my own union, the idea that a 100% classroom-based education programme is what we need going forward, and in particular at the moment, it's completely and utterly unworkable, frankly. It is not going to be sustainable. It doesn't make any logical sense, because what we've got to do is find ways of equipping people to deal with what is a monumental challenge for the trade union movement in general. And historically, we have to be in the centre of that, because we've always been in the centre of the massive changes and problems that face ordinary working people, either in the workplace or in indeed society in general. And that means, and I was listening carefully to what Sarah said, that means not just providing, you know, the 30-hour course that's Monday to Friday in a particular venue, but actually developing things that are certainly online, and we've had to move extremely fast in order to provide even a basic online programme. And, you know, again, I would agree with Sarah that the TUC have been helpful in assisting us with that. But also making it readily available at different times, in different shapes and different forms, and a whole new agenda. And I'll give the example, in fact, of the Union Learning agenda, Union Learning Fund, which of course the TUC oversees. And quickly, as part of my work, and indeed other unions, if you like, they've invented, because the circumstances demand it, a whole new list of priorities for projects. Because quite clearly, to continue the learning projects as they were into this phase and beyond would have been nonsensical, because you know you cannot but understand that the whole world of work has changed. So in the same way that the learning agenda has invented and developed new priorities, okay, so the trade union education agenda has to invent new priorities. And some of it's new, some of it's old, and I agree with the opening remarks from Carl. I mean, frankly, despite being very happily employed, as it were, at the RMT, with an agenda up until about 3 months ago of a fully 100% classroom-based education provision, I'd respectfully say to you know, my colleagues in my union, that's not sustainable if we want to effectively support the people who are on the front line, who are workplace representatives. And I agree with what Carl said at the start. This argument that dodges about now and again around classroom versus online or vice versa, frankly, is a waste of time. Because, of course, the two is symbiotic. You know, they live together. And in fact, online parts of the course can be in a classroom-based course, because you don't have to necessarily be in the same place for a fixed time to receive the support you need. And having started out on a very basic attempt to transitioning from 100% classroom into an online provision, that's not a process that's going to stop in the RMT. As I say, I would respectfully say to my colleagues. I mean, other people will make that decision and I'll respond accordingly, but it's just unsustainable. I would just like to say about learning in terms of funding. One of the things, and this might be a little bit of a stretch, but in facing up to, you know, the economic and workplace challenges, I mean, you know, which are immensely huge, to say the least, this government, perhaps not our government, but this government is going to need help and support from all sorts of organisations and all sorts of networks and all corners. And I think there might be, and this might be the stretch too far, I think there might be a role inside of solving some of these problems and mitigating some of the damage and disaster of working people in the face by funding trade union education that reps can then assist in the workplace. And I use that word on purpose, assist in the workplace to resolve some of the struggles that people are going to face. And if people in government want to be blind to the role that trade unions and in particular reps can play, well, so be it. But I think they're missing a trick. And finally, perhaps I'd like to say about accreditation, and people talk about unintended consequences. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind, and I've seen this and worked with Anna on developing our own badging system, as it were, for our own courses. this is important to people who give up time, whether it's online or in a classroom, to learn. And accreditation is as important to RMT members as it is to members in many other unions. And this unintended consequence of what happened, something which, by the way, our union supports in terms of mayoral authorities, has as an unintended consequence that now puts at risk the accreditation of many, certainly of our courses, because we particularly work through, at the moment anyway, at the East Riding College. And I think that there must be a way, you know, when you're trying to consider the challenge that we face in the next few months, indeed, the next 1 or 2 or 3 years even, there must be a way of unpicking that, all right, because it's important. And I've always felt very strongly that if an activist, if a rep gives up 30 hours, 60 hours, whatever it might be to on a course, they're entitled to be, and I use the word on purpose, rewarded for that. You know, it's a contribution to the movement, but it's also a contribution to their own development. So I think what it is we need to get past the health, as it were, issue. We need to get into what you could call the wealth issue now, and we need to provide our reps with as much access to different forms of learning and guidance so that they can deal firsthand in the workplace with the immense challenge that we face. And I remain absolutely confident that the trade union movement in this country, and indeed around the world, will play a vital role, if it's allowed to, encouraged, in resolving many of the challenges that people face, which are quite frankly, absolute game changers. So thank you, Carl, for letting me make a contribution. I look forward to hearing the rest of the discussion.
Okay, thanks, Andy. That was great. Move along now to Tracey Patmore from NOCN. The floor or the cyberspace or whatever is yours, Tracey.
Thank you very much. Okay, what I'm going to try and do is, hopefully I'm going to just share my screen with you. Just hopefully you can all see that. Yeah, good. And it is to say, this is just, and obviously I've shared this with Carl, so obviously he can sort of, you know, obviously share this around to anybody. It's really refreshing to hear as well how many, obviously from the TUC's point of view, how you are all now obviously moving over to a more blended approach, because even from an awarding body, this is a demand that we are also now having to deal with, because obviously we develop the qualifications and we accredit them, and then we obviously allow them to be, you know, mainly sort of distributed out now. But we are actually getting demands from people saying, actually, we want a more blended approach. We want to take on this more blended learning. So it's really quite refreshing to hear that obviously from the TUC's point of view, you've already taken that stance, because we see this as a new world as well of education, that there has to be a more blended approach, because I think obviously with the COVID-19, that's all sort of, you know, driven us to this as well. This is really just to give you a bit of background again about the funding as well, because there is going to be changes to the funding. So it's more just sort of an awareness for you as well. One of the key things is obviously what they've done is there is a review of post-16 qualifications at level 3 and below. So basically what the ESFA have established is that there is a mass list of different qualifications out there from different needs, so this list is huge. There are some people on there with low enrollments, no enrollments, but this list is massive. So if you're an external body, to actually choose a qualification from a list is really mind-blowing. So what they want to do now is they want to reduce this list. They want to remove qualifications to make this more concise list out there. So there's not less choice, but it is actually the choice that is from the demand of colleges, employers, and any other external bodies. So obviously, as I say, from this slide, they intend to withdraw qualifications with no enrolments from August 2021 as well. They're not moving with this. Obviously, some things have been delayed, but they're not going to delay this particular one. Qualifications with low enrolments, they will be retained the funding from 2021 to 2022, but they have obviously extended this one, whereas they're going to look at low enrolments from removal of them from August 2022. So it's, again, this is just an awareness to make you aware of the possibility that obviously this is what the ESFA are looking at. Obviously, as Carl, mentioned as well, AEB, which is predominantly where the TUC qualifications will fit, they have now, this pot of money, this funding of money has been distributed out to the MCAs as well, of which there is 6 of these local authorities which now hold this pot of money. This gives you a sort of a diagram. So from the 1st of August 2019, which is obviously last year, the ESFA no longer had the responsibility of administering this pot of money. They've shared it out into these devolved areas, which again has its own challenges. When you're looking for pots of money, when colleges are looking for different funding, these devolved areas, they actually have the responsibility of all the money. So they make those sort of decisions. So again, it's like putting in that bid to get involved in that sort of, from the money and the funding. So the other thing which is obviously is coming about from the ESFA is what they call the moratorium as well. This is another challenge that we're having to obviously address as well. So, I mean, at the moment, obviously the TUC qualifications, they sit on Ofqual, they sit on the AEB, they sit on the register, they are funded. The thing which we're trying to talk to employers about and organisations is, as of the 1st of this September, the ESFA, they're putting through this moratorium. And again, it's all to do with the review of the 16 plus. They want to reduce the amount of different qualifications that are out there. So any new sector that any awarding organisation is going to go into, they need to have obviously got that onto the funding band now. So at the moment, we're working really hard to get all qualifications onto Ofqual, so they don't fit into this, obviously this moratorium, which is going to be 3 years of where if you have a new qualification, you're not going to be able to get that funded potentially for at least 3 years. So it's again, all of these things which we are trying to work with in the background as well, which could potentially have an impact on education as we see it as well at the moment. Obviously, the things that are impacted is 16 to 19 study programs, level 3 adult learners, obviously the ESFA and the non-ESFA, AEB at level 3 again. So this is probably where it sort of more sits into this, but it's all of these, obviously these factors that will have an impact onto education going into the future as well. One of the other things which obviously listening to Sarah as well was obviously about the way that education is being looked at in the TUC and thinking about that digital badging as well, and making sure, because like quite rightly, like Andy says, if you do a course or a program, you want something out at the end of it. You want that sort of, that badge and that sort of, certificate as well. And it's obviously from the TUC's point of view, whether you've thought about endorsed programs as well, because it's another sort of service of that NOCN does, is we actually endorse those programs. So they may not be regulated, but we're endorsing that program to say that that is a good, stable program with lots of, with all the assessments in there. And then you get that badge put on, stamped onto their certificates, so you get that NOCN badge. So it's, again, it's looking at the flexibility of what you're trying to do and what you're trying to deliver. So if you've already got a program designed and developed, you could have that endorsed by NOCN. So you could actually have that kite mark and that badge put on it for your, obviously for your TUC members as well. So again, it is another option to look at rather than just going down this whole funding, because government money is being squeezed, as we well know. We know it's being squeezed by everybody, and education is taking a big hit from this. So they're squeezing the budgets, and everybody, so they're obviously being a lot tighter from those budgets. So again, it's just having a look at those other opportunities of where you could still get the quality and the kite mark, but potentially not necessarily, doesn't always have to be a funded route. Okay, I will unshare my screen with you, she says, trying to do this. Go in there. Oh, what have I done? Now, get back in. I'm just trying. Oh.
I hope there's no NOCN secrets on that desktop,
No, I wish.
Tracy.
I'm just trying to. Oh.
I can dive in and stop it happening.
Can you?
Anna,
That'd
do you
be
want
good,
to
because
do
it's
that?
gone on a small
Anna,
screen.
right.
Oh, there you
Okay.
go.
All right. Thanks
Thank
very much. Thanks very much for that, Tracy. That's really helpful, and I'm sure all my colleagues in the world of trade union education will appreciate that update. Thanks very much. So our final speaker is my colleague at the TUC, Anna Kalsi, who's going to just talk to us about our own internal accreditation of digital badges. Over to you, Anna.
Thanks, Carl, and thanks Sarah, Andy and Tracy as well for some great presentations about what you're doing in your unions and at the NOCN. So Carl's asked me to talk a little bit about digital accreditation and digital recognition of our training program. So some of you will have heard me talk about this before. Carl and Andy refer to them as digital badges. We do refer to them as well as digital credentials. We often say badges because it looks like a badge, but it's a digital image. And we're currently awarding digital credentials to learners who complete anything in our health and safety theme. So be that a health and safety piece of e-learning or a part of the health and safety stage 1 online course. I won't go into a lot of the technicalities of digital credentials now, but if you do want more information on that, do feel free to get in touch with me. I'll stick my email address in the chat in a minute. But basically, a digital credential operates very much like a certificate, except it's online. Someone who's received a digital credential can share that credential with anyone they like. They can forward it, they can put it on an email signature or an online profile, but it's very much more than just a picture. It's not just an image. Within that digital credential is all the information about what that person had to do in order to receive that digital credential. So there will be, if you click on the image of the badge, it will say that this person completed XYZ course in order to receive it. It also is verified. So so say I received one, I couldn't then forward it to Carl. He wouldn't be able to pretend he'd also received it. It's very much coded exactly to me. But I'm going to talk a bit more about what the benefits are of digital credentials and how I think we can all as a movement use them moving forward to recognise training and, more crucially, skills of union reps in the workplace, because we all know that union reps have a huge number of skills. They learn so much and they demonstrate so much in their work. And remember, you know, they're all volunteers. They demonstrate skills such as negotiating, teamwork, communications, as well as the knowledge that they have on representation and equalities issues within the workplace. So I'll use the RMT as an example because Andy's already mentioned that they are working with us to develop some digital credentials for RMT reps. As I said, at the moment at the TUC, we're issuing digital credentials for recognition of learning, but we're working with the RMT to show recognition of workplace activity. So after the rep has completed their course, they can go back to the workplace and actually put that learning into practice to perhaps represent a member, to map the workplace, to hold a learning event if they're a ULR, for example. And we will work with the RMT to issue digital credentials to a rep who has demonstrated each of these skills and each of these things that they've learned. And what we think, it allows the rep to show off what they can do, to demonstrate what they can do, and they can share that those skills and share that knowledge with their employer, with their colleagues, with their members, with other people within their union. And crucially, what that would do, for example, for the TUC, if someone shared a TUC badge, or if they shared an RMT issued badge, it would show that sharing the brand as well, because all of these digital credentials have very clearly shows who has issued them. So ours have the TUC logo on them very prominently. The RMT ones have the RMT logo. They're also green and gold, so very much in the colours of the issuer. And what it does is when an individual shares that credential, it will show that the RMT or the TUC or whoever is providing high quality and useful learning. It gives a new way to promote the name of the organisation that has issued that credential. It also, I think, because digital credentials, they are very much a contemporary thing. We've only had them for the last year or two, but it shows that an organisation that's issuing digital credentials are forward thinking, and that they're keen to develop their learners. They're forward thinking and focused on development, and it does help us. I think it helps us organise, because it shows the value of union learning. It shows the value of being a member of a union, of learning, that there's development opportunities there. But it also, we obviously all have benefited from, and will continue to benefit from, accredited courses. But what digital credentials can do is show that that we gain knowledge and skills beyond accredited courses, and that crucially we can demonstrate those. I think we can do all the courses in the world, but if you don't actually then put those into practice back in the workplace, it's a bit theoretical. So that's a bit pretty much whistle stop tour through digital credentials. Cheers, Cole.
Okay, and I think there's a really lot of work we can do with digital credentials, and I really would urge all colleagues in the world of trade union education, whether they work for a union or a college, to sort of engage in it and see how we can utilise them to best effect. Thanks for that, Anna. Okay, well, we've got 20 questions literally and 13 minutes left. So conscious of my 30 odd years in the trade union movement and our tendency for long answers, I pulled out a few that I think probably contribute most to the discussion. First one is from Scott, who's one of our course coordinators in Glasgow, for Tracey. We can see a welcome increase in the use of digital technologies and skills which help and complement the TUC programme. Will NOCN develop new units to recognise these additional skills that are being developed?
Yeah, there is new digital skills which are just about to be launched, and obviously we always involve other people into development. So if there is things that people are really keen that should be involved in this, by all means send us the information, send it to me or through Carl. We can have a look at that and then get in touch, because what we want to do is whatever we develop, we always make sure that we involve external people so that we know it's what you need. We need to produce that and deliver it. So yes, there is new digital ones that are literally going to be developed and are coming live in the next few weeks. So obviously if there is a specific content in there, we're always willing to have a look at that. We just need to know what that content looks like.
Okay, thanks, Tracey. I should say to everyone as well, is Tony Saunders is our rep.
Yes, he is.
On the NOCN board, and he's just coming to the end of a project for a new reps development pathway, which will enable us to offer another layer of training, accredited training. And Tony, we're going to set up a launch event for that, both on the new materials and that. And Tony's done some really brilliant work on developing that new pathway, which crucially might limit the impact of firstness in terms of the range of courses that we can offer. The next question is, I think it's a really good one for me, and it's about the situation at Blackburn College, which I know a lot of TUC colleagues will be concerned about. Ian's question is, do you agree the current campaign against the threatened closure of TUC education in Blackburn demonstrates the affection reps have for classroom training that is local and accessible? Well, I certainly agree, Ian, that the campaign to save the TUC Education Centre of Blackburn has been a great campaign. And actually one of the real benefits from it has been that some of the unions who've been at the forefront of that campaign have, as part of that campaign, agreed to send their reps to Blackburn College for training for the first time. So I think the campaign has demonstrated that unions will not only support the retention of the TUC Education Centre rhetorically, that they're able to back that up, and the plan that the TUC submitted to Blackburn College for the retention of the centre lean quite heavily on a lot of unions sending reps to the unit for the very first time. So I think that's been a really good development. Dave works for the TUC, so you can talk about his question in the office to me. Louise Walker, for the panel and attendees, is any union or the TUC planning to run face-to-face training this year? At the CSP, we have just finished our first ever distance learning reps induction course, but we'd like to bring them together for 2 days to consolidate the learning. So that's basically how do people see the rest of the year looking. Sarah and Andy, do you want to have a swing at that one?
I'll go first. We are kind of month by month, obviously we're reviewing this. We're looking at kind of how to start opening our regional offices, having conversations with the TUC education centres and speaking to our staff. So it really is a kind of a wait and see. And if we do run face to face, it will be towards the end of the year and the early next year, really. There are some things, as I keep saying, there are some things that, you know, face-to-face is so important for. Having those important collective supportive kind of discussions are so vital by face-to-face, and you can do them on an online platform, but you don't get that real sense of solidarity kind of moving forward. So let's watch this space, really.
Okay, Andy.
Residential centre is in Doncaster, and
Andy, do you want to start again? You were on mute until
sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of the RMT, our centre is a residential centre in Doncaster. We have something like normally over 30 people there most weeks of the year on various courses. Notwithstanding the positive things that I've said about online offer that we need to develop quickly, because we've been behind the doors on that, frankly, is we've carried out the necessary risk assessments. We're very close to getting sign-off on that. I anticipate that when we're able to safely engage our staff there to make the various adjustments that we need to make, I would be a little bit more optimistic, which may prove my downfall. But I would say we would be running courses probably early in the autumn, subject to, of course, meeting all the requirements of that risk assessment. So, and of course, the rest of the union is going for a similar process that Sarah alluded to in opening up offices. But yeah, that's where I think the RMT will be running classroom based, and also what I said earlier, Carl, focusing on developing an online provision as well.
I mean, I think for the TUC, we've got a meeting, I think it's the week after next, with all of our course coordinators. I think we're kind of expecting what we've heard back is a stronger likelihood in the second half of the autumn term, probably for classroom-based learning. But as I say, we've got a plan and meeting the week after next with all of our course coordinators and our education officers. And I suppose I should say we do stand ready to provide the same level of support for online learning if classroom-based learning isn't possible in the first part of that term. Okay, I think that answers Louise's. Steve, that's a wonderful piece of prose. I'm sorry I didn't include it in my introduction, but if I ever do, I'll get you to write it, because that's a very Robert Tressel type piece of writing. Keith Johnson, will the TUC be pooling its resources to offer a common digital learning platform for courses that all unions and college can use off the shelf? That sounds like one for an e-learning officer at the TUC. So fortunately, there's one on the panel. Over to you, Anna.
Cheers, Carl. Well, I mean, essentially, we already have resources that colleges and unions can use. We have our suite of e-notes, which are union generic. You know, they're not tailored to any particular union. I'm sure that a lot of you have already seen our e-notes. They are 15 to 20 minute bite-sized modules about workplace issues. There are 30 odd of them, and they're available on the TUC Education website. We also have wholly online versions of Union Reps 1, Health and Safety 1, ULR 1 and 2, which again are available for unions to use and supplement with their own union-specific resources. Coincidentally, the two unions here with us today are working with us to do that for union learning reps. But they are available. I get in touch with Carl or someone in the team, and we can talk you through that if you want to hear more. Cheers.
Okay, Anna, thanks. Diana Warren, who's our course coordinator at Manchester, about delivering online and reminding us that we need to ensure our messages will deliver online now, but face-to-face must be an option. Well, of course, it will always be an option. That's why we've just spent thousands of pounds on rewriting the classroom-based materials. Our commitment to that is total. There was one from John Hegarty. Do the panel agree that face-to-face learning provides far better collective opportunities to share experiences and understanding than individualised online training? Quite rightly, John reminds us about a legal right to pay time off for training, and we must avoid any trend to individualised online packages of learning. Sarah and Andy, I suspect you agree with that, but you just want to kind of address it in the context of your own unions.
Sure, absolutely agree that we are as we're going, we're learning how to make sure that we have those collective discussions, that we build in that kind of collective approach, and start creating those communities of practice through online learning, and through that kind of blended approach. Face to face, we can do it, and you can do it a lot easier, and we're better and more skilled and more experienced at doing it. We are learning, but as I say, face to face is still our preference for those particular reasons, and that's what the trade union movement's built on, for example. In terms of facility time, all our courses, whether it's face to face, whether it's online, or whether it's blended, absolutely it should be done in facility time, and we always have those discussions. Why we bring in the flexibility is because our members, have worked many different patterns and in many different workplaces, and so trying to bring that flexibility in, hopefully we can help. But fundamentally, even if it is an online course, facility time should be taken. If I can just add, we've just started a suite of doing our research refresher courses, and we've offered morning sessions, afternoon sessions, and evening sessions, and the take up on the evening sessions at the moment has been the least, and that's because people are doing their day work and they don't want to come home and then then carry out on the training, and we've had that discussion with them saying they shouldn't be doing anyway. It should be during their facility time and go back and have discussion with employers.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add to that. I mean, coming from the RMT, which traditionally has been a 100% classroom-based program, and I myself went through a very classroom-based program over the time I was learning skills to be a rep. But what shouldn't be sometimes misunderstood is that the collective approach, in terms of the classroom approach, can be almost replicated online, and it's not necessarily that somebody is sat at 2 o'clock in the morning on their own in a darkened room in front of a screen. The courses we've begun to develop online actually enable people to interact by posting their comments, their reports, their briefings, whatever, the answers or whatever it is, or of course ask questions, and so on and so forth. So you can actually migrate that collective approach, which is vital because we learn how we work in the workplace, onto the online. So I think there's sometimes a bit of a misunderstanding that, well, you're online, it means you're on, nobody's going to ever talk to you or to get in touch with you, and that doesn't have to be the case.
I'd just add to that. I mean, I've got a lot of respect for John. He knows that, and the work he's doing at NEU. I'd just say is that, you know, I regard today as an online learning experience, and there's at the peak there were 114 people on that. That's a fairly collective experience. I'm a big supporter of classroom-based learning, but I don't think it's the only way to do it. And I think sometimes we can be a little bit too doctrinaire about it. You know, for instance, we had a situation at the TUC where we needed to brief reps about the plans to return to workplaces. Our brilliant Ian Sheila in our online team produced a micro-learning site that almost tens of thousands of reps have visited and accessed. That's online learning that we would never have been able to get to reps in that scale in that short of time. The thing is, I emphasize again, this is not either or. This is a sensible combination of the two. We will never look to replace classroom-based learning. That's why we've just invested in new materials. But we are going to continue to, you know, with our unions, to keep the TUC and trade union education moving forward, so that it is as flexible and as accessible to all reps. And you know, we'll go on that journey with our unions close to us. Colleagues, it's 1 minute past 1. So I think that's all. I'm sorry for people, particularly Helen, who's I've known for ages a really good question about Zoom. If you want to email us the questions, let us know and we'll try and answer them. Thanks everybody for attending in such huge numbers. I don't know whether there's been a national meeting about trade union education this size in years. We certainly demonstrated the benefits of this particular aspect of online learning. Thanks for attending. Thanks for all your support and all your work over the last 4 months. I think along with the rest of the trade union movement, everybody involved in trade union education can be proud of how we've kept the show on the road and kept supporting our reps through this utterly insane part of our lives. And I look forward to working with you all. And I know our team at Congress House and in our regions did as well. And I thank you all for your attendance today. I'm going to close the meeting now. Thank you very much. Bye.